So today I'm just going to talk about, from our perspective as marketing moves, the increase in the number of chief marketing officer jobs we've had in the past 2 to 3 years. 10 years ago we maybe had 1, 2, 3 a year at that level, and now we're seeing 1, 2, 3 a month come through. So why is that? Why suddenly are we getting a massive increase in the number of chief marketing officer roles here in London and throughout Europe? And I think really there's two reasons. The first one is we're seeing a huge number of startups here in Europe as opposed to just in the States, in the Nordics, in Germany, in Europe. We're seeing a huge number of investments and a huge amount of investment, and a huge number of an increase in the number of startups here, and they all require CMOs. 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was always American companies coming here, where the CMO was always in the US. But also I think we're seeing, in terms of a global search, no longer does the CMO have to be in a mothership. They don't have to be based in California, they don't have to be based in New York. And when you're looking at searching for global talent, they could be anywhere on the planet. And sometimes the best CMO for a job won't be based in the US, they might be based in Munich, they might be based in Amsterdam. And we're seeing companies from all over the world doing what you essentially call full global searches to find their best talent, as opposed to just looking in their own country. And I think those two, reasons are the reasons why we are seeing a much larger influx in chief marketing officer jobs here in London, but also throughout Europe, is because A, companies are looking much further afield, and B, there's a huge, much larger amount of investment here in Europe than there used to be, because back in, say, 5, 6 years ago, it was always US-centric, and I think we're now seeing a truly global tech world where startups are springing up everywhere, and VC funding, it isn't just concentrated in the US, but is now concentrated truly globally. Funnily enough, I met with a CEO yesterday to recruit a new CMO for them, and he'd been in the business 30 years, general manager of a startup. His background was very much blue chip, and he said, do you know what, Nathan, and I'm using his words, not mine, the best CMOs I've ever worked with are geeks. They're truly technical, they understand it, they get into the skin of it, they're passionate about it, and those are the best CMOs I've ever worked with. Not someone who's maybe necessarily come from a classic background in traditional marketing, but maybe come through the technical route. In my experience, he said, make the best CMOs. And he qualified that with saying the best CMO I've ever worked with was actually based in Amsterdam. I think the biggest challenges today facing a modern CMO is getting to grips with MarTech, getting to grips with the technology behind it, getting to grips with the automation, the digital, the demand generation funnel, and how technology is now part of marketing. It's not just about communications now, it's about how the technology and the integration works, and how the lead funnel works and the technology behind it. And for a modern day CMO who's got to that level, back when he was starting marketing or she was starting marketing, the technology wasn't necessarily there. So now it's getting to grips with what the technology is out there to support them in their marketing efforts, and what those best technologies are and how best to utilize them, and how best to also hire those people that understand the digital or social media and who can come in and do that for them. But I'd say the biggest challenge is understanding and utilizing and getting to really under the skin of marketing technology. 20 years ago, I used to do FMCG marketing recruitment, and if you look at companies like Unilever, Nestle, Kellogg's, half of their board were made up of ex-marketeers. That's not the case in technology, but I think technology is catching up, and what you're starting to see now is CMOs being a genuine member of boards and genuinely part of the overall global strategy. It's moved well on from when it used to be t-shirts and pens and events. Now it's genuinely part of their strategy, and marketing and sales are integral in supporting each other. And yes, in answer to your question, I think in the next 5 to 10 years you'll see a lot more CMOs on the boards of tech companies. Another trend we are starting to see is the role of the Chief Revenue Officer. has been fairly popular in the US for a number of years now, but we're starting to see it over here, whereby the marketing director or chief marketing officer, rather than just being responsible for marketing, is now also being responsible for sales and marketing, which is a new thing. So their title generally tends to be chief revenue officer. And rather than just coming in and looking after the marketing strategy, they're also coming in and looking after the sales guys as well and managing the sales team. So genuinely integrating sales and marketing rather than it being two separate entities, which is something we're seeing as a completely new move from marketing being responsible for sales as opposed to just sales being responsible for sales. And I think in the future you'll see CSR as a title coming up a lot more, where senior marketeers are now actually, as I sort of talked about earlier, being genuine members of the board and genuinely responsible for sales and marketing as a unit as opposed to the two being separate.